How did you convince someone to see Stargate?
How do I convince someone
Yes.
to watch the show?
Yes.
I say, I'm in it. No, that only works with my mother. How do I convince people? I talk about how I think, how interesting I find science fiction and how it's a good exploration of philosophy and politics, and it's a good place to play. And then I say the rest of the cast is fantastic, and fast forward over my scenes. I'm Canadian. We have to be self-effacing.
Okay. If you could choose one final for your character of Stargate, Dr. Elizabeth Wade, what it could be? Your final.
My final.
If you can choose your final in the series,
Okay.
how could be?
What would be her end in the series? I think it would be, as an actor, I would love her to have come back, because the last we saw her, she was with replicators and floating in space. So as an actor, I would enjoy if she came back very evil and tried to take over planet Earth and then was killed dramatically. But that would be more fun, because evil is fun to play. But as far as my loyalty to Elizabeth Weir, I think it would be very interesting if she had, she ended up meeting a replicator who's basically machine robot, but the idea that everything is made of organic material. So really, is there a possibility for them to ascend, to find spirituality? And she met a replicator who was struggling to find ascension. So I think it would be wonderful to have visited her and found her with a group of replicators, and that they reached ascension, and thus bridging the gap between so-called non-organic and organic beings.
Thank you. And now is another. How do you live your experience about food and create a smile project?
Oh, sweet.
About human people.
Why am I involved with those?
Your experience about this project.
About those projects. Well, Food on Foot is an ongoing project in Los Angeles that this gentleman, Jay Goldfinger, started, I think almost 14 years ago. He has not missed one weekend. He started out of his own paycheck, buying food for 100 people and feeding them on the street. Now it's a non-for-profit. Every Sunday he's Hollywood, and he feeds 100 to 300 people. But what's more important is what he does is when he sees the same people showing up each week, he looks at them and he says, do you want a job? Do you want to get off the street? And if they say yes, he says he puts a challenge to them and says, if you show up here every week, you cannot be late once. If you're late once, you go back to the beginning of the list. You show up every week and you help me clean the streets with garbage. And if they show that responsibility and that sense of discipline, after about 6 months, he gets them a part-time job. Then he puts them in an apartment. This is all coming from money he has raised. He puts them in an apartment. He pays all of their bills for 6 months. He takes their paycheck. He puts it in a bank. So after 6 months, he then passes everything on to them. And they now have a bank account with some money saved. They have an apartment, and they can carry on. So he is taking one person at a time off the street in Los Angeles. It's a wonderful, wonderful organization. And when I first moved to LA, I didn't know many people. It's hard to try to find a community. So I looked up for volunteering opportunities, and it was one in my neighborhood, and I would just go down on Sundays and help pass out food to people and help bring awareness to try to get donations to that. And the other one, Create a Smile, that was, they actually have gone down, which is a shame. They don't exist anymore. But what they were doing, I adopted a dog. I found an animal on the street, and I loved her. I hated spending time away, so when I was volunteering, I thought, how can I volunteer and incorporate my animal as well? So there's an organization that takes animals, rabbits, cats, dogs, ferrets. Some people have, miniature ponies, and you take them to Alzheimer's homes, old age homes, abused children homes, and just allow these people that don't get much contact, and some people have emotional problems or have been abused, and just the gentleness of petting an animal. And it was interesting, the Alzheimer's was the most remarkable, I found. I took my dog, as a group of us went to an Alzheimer's home, and there was a woman whose husband had Alzheimer's for a long time, And she said when she saw her husband pet my dog, it's the first time she recognized him because he got his focus back. He was able to, she saw him in his face again. It was very moving, very beautiful. I think animals have a strong ability to help heal. Yeah.
Alright, the last one. No.
Tomorrow.
Okay. Imagine 20 or 30 years from now. The Stargate remake is filming. Do you imagine? A new Stargate remake is filming. What would you say to the new person who plays your character, Dr. Elizabeth? What would you say to her?
Give me back my part. What would I say to her? I would say, I mean, I wouldn't say, you know, I don't know. I believe people should carry on and make things their own, but I would hope she wanted to hear what I felt was important about Weir, and I felt her compassion. I thought her two C's, I called it, her compassion and her curiosity. Those were the two things that drove her. Yeah.
And the last one is, what would you like to say something to your fans?
Thank you. Yeah.
Everybody says the same.
Really?
Thank you.
Just thank you. I mean, it's a very interesting, as an actor, we live very insecure lives. You know, they're very nomadic. You work a lot and then you don't, and there's something very humbling, and it's also disconnected when you do television. I was saying yesterday in the talk, because you don't know your audience, so you don't know. So you don't know if they're getting or if they're appreciating or if you're missing what they need. So it's such a remarkable thing to meet people and to have these people that are supporting work that you did, and it means the world. I am extremely grateful, and thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. That was lovely. Sorry, I'm hot.